Let me just back up a little bit. I'll introduce myself just a little bit more. I've been a journalist for 20 years. This is my second year with the Google News Lab as a teaching fellow. Before this, I worked at USA Today for about a decade leading our audience team. I've worked in a number of local news organizations in the US, including the Baltimore Sun, the Richmond Times-Dispatch. I worked for a year in Malaysia for a mobile internet company. I've done a lot of different things. I'm very glad to be with you in this supporting role. And I'll share, you can see my contact information is here. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions ever. If you would like a training for your newsroom back home, we have teaching fellows all around the globe. So I'm happy to connect you with my colleagues or US-based newsrooms as well. So I hope that we can stay connected. The Google News Lab is part of the Google News Initiative, which is Google's effort to build a stronger future for journalism. So there are three parts of that. My role focuses on the first of the three E's here, which is to elevate and strengthen quality journalism. We have a number of other programs that also help with business models, building new technology for journalists, that sort of thing. So a lot of different things that we do all in support of your work. And this is one of our more important URLs to share. So this is where you could step through any of our trainings at your own pace, g.co/news training, that's in your cheat sheet. So you can share that with your colleagues. You can do these types of things on your own. The Google Trends website is, of course, just free, accessible, easy to use. So I would encourage you just play with that when you're ready to work with it. My guest too today is that we have some Google Trends veterans, some Google Trends newbies. My hope is that we can make sure that we cover things for all of you. So getting started, I just want to share this visualization to show you sort of what's possible in a big picture with Google Trends. So while we can look at what's trending on any given day, we can look at interest in a certain subject over time. There are a lot of cool things we can do. You can also download CSV files. I'll show you how to do that. And you can build visualizations. So this is a visualization built using the tool called Flourish, which is not a Google tool, but it's one that we help make free for journalists. And so you can sign up and use that for free, and you can do this type of thing. What we're looking at here, I like just looking at this. I think it's attention getting. And so it's the kind of thing that you might want to share on social media were you to make one. This is the search popularity of the Oscars Best Picture winners over time. And what I like about it is that each year you see that year's winner sort of rise to the top and then fall away. But we always see the movie Titanic, which is the light blue, always near the top because it's just that popular, continues to be that popular. So I always just like looking at that one. And so our plan for today for this hour, show you some of the big picture, again, what's possible, like the visualization we just saw. I want to share some key resources with you. We'll do that live demo, and I'll show you some use cases where newsrooms are making use of trends in their stories every day. This is another visualization. I'm going to show you a very current version of this in just a moment. So this is important to share because, well, let me tell you what it is first, and then I'll tell you why I'm sharing it with you. This was about a year ago, the search popularity of the different guest hosts of Jeopardy. So we can see them kind of move through over time, and they tended to spike a little bit as they were doing their weeks. This story, of course, has evolved far beyond this time, but we saw like Aaron Rodgers, the Packers quarterback, he's really near the top because he's always being searched. It was football season. And then we see some of the different people. And the reason I want to share this with you, one, it's attention getting, right? It's visually really interesting. I know it can be a little bit hard to see, the little faces are small, but I want you to know that you can partner with the Trends team on the public facing tool, which we'll look at today. We can search up to 5 things at the same time, 5 comparisons. But if you work with the Trends team on something more custom, you can then get, here we have, let's say there are 15 to 20 people. You can email the Trends team, and they love to work with journalists and work with newsrooms on custom ideas. So I just want to make sure that you know that they're available to you to do that. You can get to them through me. You can email the News Lab support email that's in the cheat sheet. So I just want you to know that they love to work with journalists, and they would be happy to hear from you. I also want to share their Twitter, and particularly today's a great day to share it after the State of the Union because they were live tweeting some of what was being searched during the speech last night. These are some trends from last year on Star Wars Day, which is May the 4th be with you, so May 4th. And it just sharing some, again, these are really pop culture examples, but there is lots of hard news being shared on trends on their Twitter account all the time. The Olympics were a great example, both the one we just had and in Tokyo last year, sharing what sports were being searched the most, which athletes are being searched the most. They had custom pages for every sport. A lot of things that we don't need to spend our time building. The trends team is doing that for us. And then this thing on the right here, so which is who's searched more Baby Yoda, or as my daughter calls him, old Yoda. And in 2021, Baby Yoda was searched more often. That's actually an animated GIF. It's not animating here, but that was built using a Google tool called Data GIF Maker. It's a really simple tool to build an animated GIF. It looks really nice in a tweet. So I just want to share that Twitter resource with you. And then this one I'll spend just an extra minute on because I just love the newsletter. I really encourage you to sign up for it. It comes out usually in the early afternoon Eastern time. And it's just a look at the whole day. You get US trends, you get global trends. There are always deeper dives on certain topics. So what I really want to do actually is show you yesterday's. I'm just going to bring my email over here. And in your cheat sheet, there is a link to sign up for this newsletter. So I'd encourage you to do that. So this was yesterday's, came out 12:30 Pacific time, so 3:30 East Coast. And there was this alert, which is how I learned about what they were doing on Google Trends. Follow the State of the Union speech live on Twitter, and we will be producing an extra special edition of the newsletter. I was reading this going like, great. I'm going to show you that newsletter in just a moment. And so here we are going to get, this is just a little bit of what will be in this newsletter, right? So first thing, always top trends, and we get information about each one. So we can see, just need to move the faces over here so I can read this. So we're learning when something is a breakout search. We're learning when it's US or global. And then this is literally what people are searching. They're typing in, did MLB make a deal? What is the MLB lockout over? So they're searching their questions and they're hearing about news, and then they're going to Google to figure out, how can I learn more about this? And so this is something I mentioned just a minute ago. This is a variation on that. It's called a horse race chart. These are the top searched issues over the last week ahead of the State of the Union speech. So we can sort of see how they move through time and when they spike and when they don't. And let's see what happens at the end here. So this was actually turned into a GIF, it looks like. Oh, if we click on this, that's cool. I hadn't done this yet. So this is actually taking us to the State of the Union page. So you're always going to find some gems like that in this newsletter, lots of resources for you. And then just to pause here, so you're also always going to get the top questions on a certain topic. So I want to pause there because I think that is so cool to know what people are looking for. And it's our role to answer these questions. So here they are. If you've ever written an FAQ, a frequently asked questions, and you're sitting there going, I wonder what questions people have about this topic, you can find them. If it's a popular topic, they might be in the newsletter, or you can use the trend site to find those yourself. So I really, really like that. We also often find maps. Where are people looking for certain issues? You can make that global, of course. And then there were lots of searches for Mardi Gras, which was yesterday, or Carnival. So these are the different crews in New Orleans, all of the popular trends around Mardi Gras. So you usually get some cultural things and some hard news things, a mix in the newsletter. So I really am a big fan of that one.
Mary,
and let me just yes.
a question regarding the newsletter, because
of course
we're here all international correspondents, basically, or international journalists. Does this is only focused on the US, or is this a worldwide thing? Is it possible to get it in different languages as well?
Great question. So the newsletter is both US and global. So I do recommend it for this group. I would say on any given day, it's like 50% sort of a US set of trends, 50% global trends. World Cup is always here. All of the big football matches are always here. The Olympics, like global stories, lots of trends about Ukraine. So yes, not just US focused. You can't get it in other languages. So that's a good question. I am going to show you in the tool how we can change our country and what it means when people type things in different languages. So it's one newsletter fits all, but I absolutely think there's something worthwhile in there every single day. And so I just want to go into this special newsletter that we saw previewed. So this is what came out last night. So 8:15 Pacific time, 11:15 Eastern. That's pretty quick after the speech, right? And so these are the top trends. So if you were covering the speech and you wanted to know where should I be focusing attention, Here are some clues. Top metro areas searching for State of the Union outside DC. You can see why, of course, it's going to be Washington, DC. So they said, let's just remove that set of information. And then this is where I got our question. What was the most searched political issue during the speech? And those of you that guessed correctly, which was Ukraine. Annalisa says, where do we sign up for the newsletter? Great question, Annalisa. So you'll find a link to sign up for that in the cheat sheet. Let me put that link back in the chat. Oops, that's not the correct one. I apologize. There we go. So that's your Google Doc cheat sheet that I made for you. And then under trends, you'll find a link to sign up for the newsletter. Here's the cheat sheet that opened up when I clicked on that. Okay, so here's where we got some of that information. So again, special deliveries, great stuff every day, lots of questions being answered by this newsletter. I consider it for myself, critical reading every day. All right, let me close out of that. And then we accidentally clicked on one, and here it is, the State of the Union page. So this is a page built by the Trends team that if you have these types of things you want to be looking at, they've already created this for you. These are the trending queries. So I love this. Who yelled out during State of the Union? Who was the heckler? They want to know about that. They want to know about Marjorie Taylor Greene. So the kinds of things that were happening in the room in the moment. And these are the kinds of pages that you'll find linked up in the newsletter. I call them resource pages. This one is interesting. This was kind of a special resource page, and I'm just going to open it up to look at it together. This came out late last year, and you can, anytime there's an ability to download something, I want to make sure to share that with you. So you can download this data set, which is awesome. And these are symptom searches. So what we know from Google search trends is that when people search symptoms, we often can correlate that with a spike in that illness. It happens, well, pre-COVID, it happened at the beginning of flu season every year as the flu was starting to take over, and people they go to Google to ask, I have these symptoms, what's wrong with me, right? Or will a flu shot cure the flu? All the kinds of questions that they have every year. And we've seen that with COVID as well. I'll share with you, it's linked in your cheat sheet, but it's a Washington Post story where they were able to lay over the graph of a COVID surge with a spike in searches for symptoms like loss of taste and smell. So searching for things like symptoms can be really interesting. And here we can make some changes. We don't have every country, so this isn't perfect, but it's pretty interesting. And so this is the kind of thing that the Trends team will often be working on and sharing out via the newsletter or via the Twitter account. Okay, so here are some stories as mentioned, and this is how you might use trends in your story ideas. So Google searches for inflation have surged. Here's why that matters. Here's a question that people wanted to know. When can we stop wearing a mask inside? These are the types of things people are going to Google, they're typing it in. And when we can learn that, we can figure out how do we want to make a story out of that? What are people wondering? How can I answer their questions? When is the housing market going to crash? Is a red hot search on Google. Here's why. I love that story. It's exactly the question that people are typing in. And here is the answer. It's the kind of thing that when people answer that question or when they type it in, if they can get to your site where the answer is, it's going to be a very satisfying experience for them as a searcher and a good experience for you, of course, people reading your work. And then this one is the one I mentioned just a moment ago. So let me just slow this down and explain this here too. This is the overlay of the search of loss of smell with the surge in cases. You can see that these lines directly correlate. Same kind of thing here. Coronavirus cases and search trends. And then signals, you can look at trends for signals and other things too. So this was a search on unemployment, jobless claims going up. People are maybe filing those for the first time ever. How do I do that? And here they can look at trends and figure out the story that they want to tell. Okay, so I'm going to pause there and I'm going to go to the tool. So it's just at trends.google.com. And there are a few things that I want to show you to start. So I like to think of, this is the home page, but I have a different one that I think of as the home page, which is trending searches. So you go to your little menu, click on trending searches, and there are two types of trends. So let's just spend a moment here. The first one that takes us to is daily search trends. And we've got some State of the Union stuff, I think, lower down, but we can see here the Lakers and LeBron is a question that people want to know about. They're asking today. And we can see this number means that there are 200,000 more searches than usual. So I want to pause here because what you won't get is the raw number of searches. Google doesn't share that information. So this is probably somewhere in the tens of millions, but we don't know that. And that's just me guessing. I don't have access to that information either. But it means that there is a spike in this information. People want to know about this more today than they usually do. And anything usually over 100 to me is an interesting story. So the rest of these are a little bit smaller. They probably won't be a sustained search, but interest in LeBron is always high. And if we open this little box up, we get a couple of other things as well. We get the stories about this. These are chosen by algorithmically, so they're not curated by a person. And we get some related queries. So when people are searching for the Lakers, they're also searching for the Mavericks. And sometimes in related queries, we can find some new story angles or some new ways of thinking about these trends. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in a moment. And then here is the country level. So we asked about, of course, for correspondents being from other countries, you want to know what's trending in your country, you can come here and do a drill down to wherever. I'm just going to click on Canada. And they also want to know about the Lakers, as well as some other things. So I also want to share that these are only at the country level. You can't drill down by region. In the US, you can't do it by state. People often want to know, how can I figure out what people are searching for in my local area? I can show you a hack to do that, but there's no way to do it on this page officially. So here's where you make that change. I'm going to go back to the US. And I'm going to click on, now I'm going to switch over to real-time search trends. I like this better because it moves faster. And so I think it's a little bit, it's just going to look a little more updated. So we've got breaking news that Philadelphia is dropping its indoor mask mandate. We have news out of the UN regarding the Ukraine. A lot of different things, more on Russia and the UN here. And then in real-time search trends, what you'll notice here is this is different. So it doesn't say like 200K plus. What we get are the shape of the trend itself. So this can be really helpful to guide you on, is it a decision making? Is this something that I want to write about? So on this one for the Fitbit, so it looks like there's a Fitbit recall. We can see that this has spiked and it's already going down. So you may use that to decide, if interest in this is already dying off, maybe I don't want to do a story on this. Or if I open this up, I can see that when people are searching for this, these are the other things they're searching for. So this is cool. And what I'm getting from looking at these, of course, these things are not necessarily related, right? Ash Wednesday and then the Russia-Ukraine war. What this means to me is that people are just interested in the news. When they want to read about the Fitbit recall, they also want to just read about what else is going on in the world. They want to read about baseball. They want to know what today's Wordle answer is. We see a lot of that. So these are some of their questions. So let's take a look at a different one. All right, I'm going to open up this fish fry. This is also related to Ash Wednesday and Lent. And so here are the kinds of things, again, that when people Google this, they're also Googling these phrases. Can I eat meat on Ash Wednesday? Drive through ashes near me. When is Lent? And so if I'm writing a story about Mardi Gras or Ash Wednesday or Lent, these are the kinds of things that I want to start thinking about that might help shape my story. They might be questions that I answer. They might be things that I just want to include. So I really like to just look at what people are curious about and let it guide me as I wish in thinking about my story. So let me just pause there, see if everybody's with me, want to check if there are any questions. If you do, please put them in the chat. One more thing I'll show you on this page is that on real time, you can also drill down by topic. So if you're covering just health or business, you can click into that here and just see a little bit more of what's being searched. All right.
Is the topic possible also on the daily search trends or just on the real-time trends?
What do you mean by topic?
Like you showed now in the business, entertainment.
Good question. Yes, you can't drill down by topic on daily. There are some other options here, but real time is the place where you would do that. Yeah, good question.
Thank you.
So that's a little bit why I like this one more too. I think daily is like, it's broader, it's more encompassing. If you wanted to write about what was trending yesterday overall, this is where you'd want to know. But if you're making decisions on the fly, if you're covering breaking news, if this is something you want to check multiple times a day, you're going to want to be in real time, and you may want to drill down as well. And again, just to point out the country switcher too.
So Mary, one of the questions that I have, since nobody wrote on the chat yet, so I'll start with a question, and then they can, you know, build up the courage to ask their questions. Is okay. So one of the things that we talked today about digital stories, when we post an article, when we post a video on YouTube or whatever, it's the use of hashtags. And one thing that I hear, especially when talking about hashtags, is that you should check Google Trends. So how do we translate basically, and I know that this might be a very complex question, but how do we translate all this information that we're getting into making sure that we are using those hashtags that will put our story on the top of the Google search instead of on the bottom of it?
Okay, that's a great question. So I'm gonna break it up a little bit. So the first part, just to sort of give the caveat that I can't guarantee that anything I show you is going to change how you show up in search results. You know, obviously SEO is very complicated, and this isn't meant to be an SEO training, but I understand your question, which is I've got all this information, but I need to just make a decision about what I'm going to include in my tweet, in my headline, whatever. So I'll do a comparison between a couple of things, and I'm just going to stick with the State of the Union example. So now I'm moving over to the Explore page, and this is where we put our search terms in. So let's see. The first thing that I want to share with you, so I'm typing in SOTU, which is how I'm used to thinking of it, right? And is a hashtag. And I want to share that when I do that, I get only the thing that's related at the top here is called the search term. So let me just quickly see if State of the Union is a topic. It is. Okay. And this is really important to share the difference between search terms and topics. So a search term is these letters in this exact order as I typed them in. So if I create a typo and I hit enter, I'm only going to be searching for people that have also made that exact typo. And I share that because it's important when you're doing this sort of hashtag comparison. Most of the time, but not every time, you're likely going to want to choose the topic which you'll find. So something that's breaking news that came out of nowhere, or things that may not be topics yet, you're just going to choose search term. But the difference between State of the Union topic and State of the Union search term, you can see I almost just put a typo in that one anyway, is going to be very, very different. And so this one, we talked about different languages. The topic page is always going to include, if people typed it in a different language, it will roll up in there. If they use a different character set keyboard, it will go in there. Typos will also go in here. And if somebody has a nickname, and I'm going to answer your question specifically, but this is a great segue to this. So Prince Harry is also the Duke of Sussex. And if you type his name incorrectly, when you choose his topic in search in here, if I choose this, it's going to include all of those things. So it's the bigger set of information, which again, most of the time is what you're going to want to be working out of. And so I could click on this here. So I'm not going to do that. In this case, I'm searching for, I'm just going to compare what's better, putting in State of the Union or putting in SOTU for a hashtag, right? So let's just see, I'm going to remove this topic because I usually want to compare apples to apples. So that's what I have here. So, and then here's where I'm going to drill down. So if I'm trying to make my really quick, which do I put this in my tweet, State of the Union or SOTU? You can go worldwide. For our purposes today, I'm just going to do the US, and I want to go to like the last 7 days. So here's where I'm going to start to make those changes. And I can see that people are more likely to search the full State of the Union than they are to search SO2, which is not surprising because most people don't call it this, right? We call it that because we're used to abbreviating it. And so this would help me make that decision, right? Is there another example you might be thinking of, Miriam, that we could do here?
Let's do Batman. Batman now was just launched yesterday. So the name of the film is actually The Batman.
Batman, The Batman?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great.
Because the thing is, these are two very similar, we're talking about adding a the before or not, but it makes a big change on search at the end of the day.
It depends on the thing. Yeah. So sometimes the word the is removed from the search, but in this case, I can see the Batman, as you say, does have its own topic. So if I'm searching for Batman or the Batman, in this case, I'm going to keep my search terms so that they're together and that they're the same type of thing. Which are people searching for more often? And you said it came out just yesterday. So let's make our search even a little bit smaller. We're still finding that people are searching for Batman more often.
Yeah, that makes sense.
However, your question is such a good one because you don't always want to choose the one that's bigger. Many times you will. You'll go, great, more people call it that. Cool, that's what I'll call it too. But there are times when something is just so broad, like the story of COVID over the last 2 years, that searching for, do people search more for COVID or coronavirus, isn't really that relevant anymore, because the searches are going to come together. But what you're looking for is like, I actually want to capture a set of people that are looking for something really specific. They're looking for like vaccine side effects, Johnson & Johnson, right? So you may want to be more specific at times to really get the right people connected with the right information, instead of going, oh, anyone searching for anything on COVID should read my story about Johnson & Johnson vaccine side effects. That's not always a great use case for the user. So I just caveat this with that. It's helpful to see what's bigger, and that isn't always the thing you want to choose. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And it definitely does make sense. Even on this specific topic, if you want to make sure you're only getting the people talking about the film, right, you might want to use the Batman instead of the bigger.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the Batman means all of the movies, all of the comics, all of the characters, right? And the Batman means the film that just opened.
The exactly film, yeah.
Yep. You got it. Great.
Here's somebody comment on the chat, and upon expounding on the UN and the Guterres call to protect foreigners getting out of Ukraine, how to crowd search worldwide reporting on, I believe, discrimination on African students.
What a good question. Such an important piece of this story. So let's see, crowd searching worldwide reporting is not exactly what we're doing here, but let's see what we can do. All right, so let's start with just a couple of things, and we're gonna kind of see where we're going. And I am curious if this is a topic yet. It looks like it's not. How strange that Russia isn't coming up. Did I spell that wrong?
No, it's correct. Why don't you write maybe Putin instead of Russia?
Yeah, that's good.
That could be a better.
Yep, here we go. I did that thing where once you look at a word too long, it starts to look, it just doesn't make any sense anymore. It just looks like a bunch of shapes.
We're all journalists here. We've all been there.
Yeah. I learned there is a word for that. I can't remember what it is right now, but I was so delighted to learn there's a term for that moment when you think, oh, it's just a bunch of shapes now. All right. And then let's just try African students. So here we're not comparing apples to apples, but we're just wanting to start to get our arms around this story. And we have these really big search topics, so they're dominating our graph. but let's just go down here and start to see what we can find. So on this Ukraine set of information, we're in the US. Let's make this global. So worldwide, let's make this bigger. I think not the last day, but the last 7 days. And let me go back down. Okay. So here we're getting interest by region, not surprising, coming right there. And here you can actually see we're getting things in different languages. So this is Ukrainian, I imagine. And so these are the related queries. When people are searching for anything related to Ukraine in the world in the last 7 days, this is what they're searching for. These are the queries, and we get 25 of them. And so we can start to see the different languages, a lot of pray for Ukraine, Ukraine war. Thank you, Umar, correcting me that those searches were in Russian. Why did Russia invade Ukraine, etc. So this is just good to get our arms around what is it that people are looking for. This is a great place when people start to do stories on aid and donations and how can I help? A lot of good questions in there. One thing I also want to note is that what breakout means, we've seen that a few times. This means there's 5,000% more interest in this than usual. 5,000 or more, could be even greater than that. And not surprising because it's the beginning of the war. So we see lots and lots of interest, many breakout searches. Okay, so here we go. So let's go down to African students because this is really what we want to know more about than just the overall war. And here we are seeing what people are looking for. So African students stuck in Ukraine, that's the story, right? It's a breakout search. It has 5,000% more interest than usual. Indian students in Ukraine, South African students in Ukraine, racism, right? Which is of course behind all of that. And here are the things that people are looking for. So we are starting to see what the interest looks like in this story, where the interest is. So this kind of gets at the question, we can see that in Africa, the yellow is brighter. There is more interest in Africa. Of course, people are wondering about their family members, their people from their own country, that type of thing. So there's a lot of interest in this story for good reason in Africa, particularly in Southern and Eastern Africa. So this is the kind of thing that people are looking for. So again, it's not exactly crowd searching worldwide reporting to the specific question from Mamadou, but it is showing us the type of interest, the things that people are looking for. So this is what they want to know. This can help us as we start to shape our coverage of that story. Is that helpful? And are there follow-up questions on this one?
Many, many, many thanks. This is excellent.
Oh, great. You're so welcome.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Perfect. Good. Okay, I hope that's a start. So let's see. The other things I'll just share here are, I've got this sorted by rising, meaning they're sort of on their way up. I prefer that. But if you change this to top, what you just see, these have the highest volume of searches over this time frame. So these are the types of, not surprisingly, the very general broad searches. People want to know what's going on with this story. This is what they're looking for. And rising means they start with the breakout and it's sorted by percentage. More search traffic on this than usual. You can embed this. You can embed any of these boxes. If they help you tell your story, you can just grab them and put them in to your CMS. You would just grab the HTML code. And you can download any of these. So I'll just share where that is everywhere. You can download this. You can download this big graph. So if we're comparing something that's interesting, that helps us tell our story, we can download that information. And if you're a data reporter, that's something that you could do. You could sort of set up as a routine data download. For example, every Monday, I want to download the last 7 days of information on this story or this topic and just start to build a repository that someday you may want to use in the telling of the story. Okay, so let's see. A couple of other things to share with you at the top here. So we've looked at some of these different categories. So we're in worldwide now, which I think makes sense. Of course, you can go to the country level, and you can also, in most cases, I'm just going to do the US, You can usually drill down to region. Sorry, let's do that again. And so in the US, you can go down to the state level if this is important to you. We can go to, let's go to Washington, DC. I imagine that some of you are there the last 7 days. And so when we change this, we are drilling down into people that are located in that area. And the reason we can't go smaller is because it would start to be less anonymized potentially. And so all of the data in here has to be anonymized and indexed when we don't want to ever share what any one person or IP address is searching for. That would be a gross privacy violation. So we have to keep it fairly large, but we want it to be useful. And then I want to share on this graphic what that means too. So for being indexed, the highest point on any of these charts will always be 100. And everything is indexed relative to that. So it doesn't mean 100 anythings. It just means this is the top, highest, most point, and everything is compared relative to that. So it's important to share that with you as well. And again, we won't ever get those raw numbers, like how many people are really searching for this. It's not shareable information. So it's important that if you're going to write about trends and include it in a story, that you have your arms around all of that. I don't actually think I do want to, I realize I don't want to do the District of Columbia because it's so small, it doesn't have subregions. But in California, where I am, we do have subregions. So just to share with you, in most states, DC is too small. Rhode Island might be too small as well. We can find different areas. So I can find the Bay Area where I am. What are people looking for? I learned this week that California has 15% of Ukrainians in the US are in California. So there's a big contingency here. There have been protests as well. So if I want to just change my area, what are people searching for when they search for these stories? I can start to see what has changed. So we're getting, most of the things are in English. What's different? And then people are looking for very specific things. Here's what they're looking for when they look for Putin. Casualties, is Putin married with children? And then we do see interest in this story about the African students who are stuck in Ukraine. So things start to change as you make changes up here. For breaking news, past day and past 4 hours can be really, really useful. So let's just do that here and see what we get. Sometimes there isn't enough to actually share, and we will start to find, you'll get some of these things just won't be filled out with information. They'll say, like there's not enough search volume to show a graphic. Charity Navigator, so that's a great story, right? I mentioned that a few minutes ago. As people are just really feeling helpless, how can we help? They want to know, where should I donate? What's most useful? Charity Navigator is part of that story. So if that's an angle that you're taking, you can start to learn that. And they're doing lots of just catching up. Why is Putin attacking Ukraine? So they know this is an important story, and they're doing a lot of catch up. So I think a lot of times as journalists, we're really up to date on every single development in a big story. And it's just not true that most of our readers are. We often find that they just need a little bit of catching up. So I think that when you look at these things over time, it starts to build up that knowledge base of how people search and what they search for, so that you can know, they want to know this, I'm going to include that. Or for people who haven't followed this story until today, here's a little bit of a breakdown. Maybe it's bullet points or something like that, or even just a link out to an explainer piece. This is what I was mentioning, when we just don't have enough search. So African students in the San Francisco Bay Area in the last 4 hours just doesn't have enough search to show here. And that makes sense to me. Okay. So let's remove these. I'll leave up in Ukraine just to share this other one, so you can also drill down by category. This one, it wouldn't make sense to me. I don't usually change this, but I just want you to know that it's here if you do want it. I wouldn't want to be looking for news about this story under arts and entertainment, for example. So if I drill this down, I'm just going to get less helpful information, right? All I'm getting is Sean Penn in Ukraine. So that's not what I'm looking for, but just know that that's possible. And then here you can change by the Google product. So most of the time, myself, I'm looking for just web search. People are going to Google, they're typing it in, right? Or they're doing it in their Chrome browser bar. But if you want to just search YouTube, or people looking on just Google News or just for images, you can drill down by that as well right here. So that one's important to share. I want to go to our back to our quiz. So the most searched issue during State of the Union last night. And if everybody guessed correctly, and I'm not surprised, but I am going to type that in because this could have been how you found that information. One way to find it would be get the newsletter. And the other way to find it would be to quickly run a comparison search. So let's pull out our 4 choices. Supreme Court. Again, I'm choosing this topic because more search volume rolls up into this one. And for all of these, I'm going to want to choose the topic page. Our other options were Ukraine, healthcare. So this is called healthcare coverage and access. And the reason that you can know that something is the topic, the search term will always show up first. If there is a topic, it'll be in the next set of 3, and it always has that second line filled out. So if you search a celebrity, it might say popular celebrity or singer-songwriter, something like that. So this second little gray line will always be filled out, and that's how you know it's the topic. And then the economy was our other choice. So right now we're just comparing search interest in these 4 issues in the US in the last 4 hours. So what I want to do is the last day to include all of yesterday and last night. And we can see that the highest volume by far is Ukraine. And what's interesting about this is, while the question was framed for which was the most searched issue during the State of the Union, and I am certain that people were searching for certain things during the State of the Union because they heard Biden talk about them, there are also people just searching these stories overall all the time that have nothing to do with State of the Union. So meaning the interest in Ukraine is very high. Whether or not Biden made a speech on it last night, I would expect to see this at the top for that reason. So it's important also to not overdraw those conclusions, right? So we can say that Ukraine was the most searched political issue during State of the Union speech. That's not wrong. We can't say that it was the most searched because of it, because we don't know enough to make that connection. So I think that's a little bit important to share as well. And then of course I could just look at these. So this is just interesting. If we go the last 90 days, we see interest in Ukraine start spiking big time, right? As the walk up to war began, and then certainly did begin. So that's where we start to see those changes. And I had in my question for a moment, how like COVID adds into this. So if we look at, again, the last 90 days, people are searching for information about coronavirus sort of all the time, right? And then that starts to drop off as we start, really, as this is late January, Omicron's still quite surging at that point. And my guess is that this looks a lot like the cases graph, right? As it just becomes a little bit less front and center in our lives, we're searching for it a little less. And then boom, we have a big breaking news story sort of dominating search. So if this is something that you were just writing a story about, what are people looking for? Again, you could drop this in your story, you could download this data, you could even just tweet this if you don't want to write a story about it, but you just think it's interesting. There's one last thing I wanted to share. So if you have questions or things you'd like me to look at, please let me know. I'm just going to remove all of these things here. I'll also just highlight what I'm doing. I'm clicking remove, but you can also edit. So you can just make changes to your thing as you go if you realize, oh, I picked the wrong item. So this is how I get at the question of what's trending in my local area. And I'm going to do it for US, and you may be able to do it for your countries as well. So all I'm doing is I'm searching for a very general question word, and then I'm going to go to the specific area. So I'm just going to, again, go to San Francisco. Actually, let's do DC. Here we go. So I'm going to go to Washington, DC. I'm going to go to the last day because I think that's a good time frame. And so what I'm looking for is when people are typing anything into Google that includes the word what are they looking for? What is Ash Wednesday? What is the State of the Union? What time is the State of the Union? This is where people, they just want to know sometimes really basic things. And we tend to forget about that because we know we've got the time memorized, it's been on our calendars for 3 months. What time does it start is dominating the queries. So, and I can also go, now that that is over, has that search set changed? So now people are no longer searching what time is State of the Union, it's over. They want to know, what is NATO? What is my IP and what is a vacuum bomb? We can also search for the name of a place. So in DC, I'm just going to put DC because that's what everybody calls it. And so when they're searching for DC, it looks like we don't have enough data here to really get anything. But when they're searching for DC in the last 7 days, what are they looking for? Protests, right? What's scheduled around State of the Union? What are the truckers coming? DC United, the soccer team, and the New York Lottery. Kind of interesting that that's trending in DC. So searching for a place name can help me get at what's trending. I'm going to do Richmond, Virginia, and make some changes here just to show this one again. I'm going to go to Virginia, and I'm going to choose the Richmond area, and I'm going to choose the last day. So again, this is people in the Richmond area in the last day searching for the word Richmond. When they're doing that, what are they looking for? They want to know about St. Edward's Church. They want to know about Black Restaurant Week, more churches, grocery stores. A lot of these things are not necessarily news stories, of course. Lots of church searching. That's very interesting. Maybe there is, why are they searching for churches? I don't know. Is there something interesting? Oh, it's probably Ash Wednesday. I'm realizing now because these are Catholic churches. So if I'm a local reporter there, I'm going to want to know, oh, maybe this is a place I want to go get a photo today. Or
but even for a lifestyle type of story, you want to put like top 10 churches in Richmond area, or
yes.
like now that you're showing this, I even thought about for travel journalists to do a comparison, which cities are more searched in Europe, like you get Paris, London, Athens,
yes.
and make a comparison.
Yeah. So as people can travel now too, like where they look, what are they searching for? Where do we think they might travel? If we look at like New Yorkers, what places in Europe are they thinking about traveling to? We can start to get our arms around this. Best breakfast in Richmond, that's a great story, right? Again, lifestyle content. So when people search for that, what are they looking for? A lot of times I'll run this sort of during like lunchtime, and I'll make the time frame really small, and we'll just see people looking for like directions to Burger King, right? And so they're just trying to solve for lunch. So whether that's not a news story, but it's really good to just know what people are looking for and when they're looking for it, so we can start to think like them. And we already do when we're not in our journalism roles. We are just searching for things all the time. Best breakfast in Richmond, what time is the State of the Union, all things that we have probably typed in some variation or another over time. So when we can think like that, then we can be creating stories that are starting to answer people's questions and be really, really relevant down to, the day or down to the very, very nuanced topic. So that's sort of my hacky way of getting at this. We can type in other words like who might start to tell us who is running for mayor in Richmond in 2022, right? So just things that we think are a general enough word. Let me start to get some of those search trends and get them my way.
We have a couple of questions that I think you have already answered here on the Q&A. That's why they didn't show up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, I don't have the Q&A open.
Yeah,
so let me get that.
Yeah, I think you answer most of them, but just in case, I think we should just run over them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is a question here that I think you answered, but let's see that. I'm a foreign correspondent. My articles are usually written in my native language, Hungarian. Can I use Google Trends even in Hungarian?
Great question. So in that case, you'll want to type the word in. If you type it in as a search term in Hungarian, you will see other people searching that, or you'll always want to make sure you choose that topic, which will include anybody searching for that word in any language, all of the different language variations are going to roll up into the big topic. So even somebody searching for something in Hungary, but they're typing it in Arabic on an Arabic keyboard is still going to go into that larger search term. So I hope that makes sense. So the short answer is yes.
It's not that straightforward, but it's usable.
That's right.
So the second question is a little bit more complex. How do you read the rising trends? When should we focus on a topic/question from the rising trend section?
What a good question. So that's where I think I would look at the little shape of the graph. So let's go back to it quickly. I mean, ultimately, there's so much that goes into that question, right? And a lot of it is just your story knowledge, right? Just your instincts as journalists covering the story all the time. You're going to want to know, am I covering this or am I covering that? Our trends have gone away. Oh no. Let's try once more. And if not, I have these different shapes in a deck. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. All right. So this is the thing I would start to look at for just a clue. And again, it's not the only thing that goes into a decision making on a story. Of course, is my audience interested in it? Have they been interested in this over time? But is there something for me to do? And is there something for me to do that's unique? If everybody's covering this in the same way, how are you going to stand out? What's your unique angle as a reporter for your specific news organization? So that's where I really like those related queries for just, is there something different I can do about this, right? Starting to just look at, maybe I really want to focus on the UN vote today. Maybe everybody is not doing that. Or the drone story, that's great, right? Turkish drones. So starting to just see some of those the smaller trends, but there's something to be done there. So I think this can also weigh into that. But again, it's just a bigger question of the types of things that you want to cover and how you want to do it. I will also share that you could use Explore to build interest with your editor to cover a story, right? If you're going, hey, lots of people are searching for this, I'd really like to do a story on it, and I can show you that their search interest is going up. So I think this can be kind of useful for just people, if they go, oh, nobody wants to read about that, or we covered that last year. It's like, okay, well, we covered it last year, but it's trending again. I always hear in the newsroom, oh, we already did that. We did that last week. We did that 4 days ago. And it's like, great, but people want to know about it right now. So how can we bring that back out? How can we do something different and new on it? And so this can help build that overall knowledge base for yourself, for your editor, and at times sell a very specific story.
It's the pitch.
Yeah.
And the last question that we have here in the Q&As is actually very practical.
Yes.
This says, I'm realizing that the embedded option gives us a HTML code. Is there a way to save the graph as a picture or even animation to use it for a TV report?
Great question. So what I would do is I would take a screenshot, and that's perfectly fine. So there's no animation of this. If you use the tool like Flourish, which we talked about briefly at the beginning, you can build animations and you can create a screencast, like video cut, right? And that's our recommendation for TV newsrooms in particular. But in this case, I would take a screenshot. If I go to tweet this, let's see what happens. If I were to tweet this, it would show this little picture as well. So I think the simplest answer is to just do that screen grab and give it credit.
I guess
Great.
that's it.
Those are good questions.
Yes, we have a very curious group here. Guys, do you have any more questions? Because we're almost running out of time. So I just want to make sure that we reach everybody's questions or.
Yeah, let me know if you have any others. I want to thank you. If you have questions, still put them in, but just wrap up my thanks at the end here and share, if you wouldn't mind, one more just survey for how you liked this training. If you hated it, I need to know that. If you loved it, that's great. If you would never want to see me again, that's fine too. I would just love your feedback on this. So you can access that survey. Let me make that live over at that same link from earlier as well.
Can you send the link on the chat? I think it's easier.
Yes, I will. Yes, I sure will.
No, and we would love to thank you for doing this training. I know that a lot of the times people that are just trying to get used to this language, and Google is something that is so part of our everyday jobs now. So I really appreciate and your patience and your grace on acting on every single one of our questions.
Of course.
I'm like, even more excited to start using these tools straight away. And I'm sure that our fellow colleagues here are as well.
I'm glad to hear that.
And everyone, thank you for joining us for this amazing class.
Thank you. Thanks, Miriam. Thanks, Thanos. Thanks all for joining. Take good care.
Thank you, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, so I'll close the chat here. Thank you so much all of you for joining us, and we look forward to our next training session. All right, bye-bye.